start our mold process here by placing our drag upside down on the floor and then placing our patterns. It's the half of the pattern that doesn't have the alignment pin in it. So these will set flat on the floor as well. Probably should have used some kind of piece of plywood or something a little more flat than that wrinkled up plastic that we had on the floor. Then we'll add a little bit of sand. We'll add it in layers and then pack between layers. Hard enough to kind of bind the sand together, but not too hard. You don't want to disturb the patterns underneath. You know, the more sand you get in the flask, the harder you can pack it. And once you get the flask filled up, you're going to kind of screed off the top of it to make it a nice flat surface. Used a board here to help me flip it over. Once you get the drag flipped over, you can add the second half of the patterns. May have to blow out the holes, and then a little bit of parting powder to help the flask come apart once we get the cope packed. So here comes the cope. We're going to add some standpipes or a fill pipe and a couple of vents. Move these around in subsequent pours, trying to get the best flow that I could to the parts. A little bit of, or a lot of trial and error on all this stuff. Alright, now here comes some more sand. And same deal, just layers, packing between layers, using different devices to pack where it's real tight between the vents in the flask. Do your best to get in there and pack that sand the best that you can. The sand mixture is still wrong, or it is wrong here. You can tell by the color of it. It's hard to tell from the video, but it's not packing great. It's pretty flaky or pretty crumbly. And here in just a minute, you're going to see exactly what happens when you don't have the sand mixture right. But as we work the flask, sand to the top, screed it off the best we can, and then pull the fill pipe out and the vents out, and then one more good screed across the top of it, make it as flat as you can. So when you add the fill cup, the vent risers have a nice flat surface to sit on. Well, as I try to pick the cope up off the drag, I can feel that it's not quite right. So I try to compensate by turning it on its side. Alright, this is round 2 or round 3, round 4, something like that of packing this flask. And we know by this time that the sand is not right. It's just too crumbly, and it won't stay in the flask when we when we split it apart. We've had it fall out several times now, but we're just trying to make it work. The furnace is outside running. The aluminum is hot. We're under pressure to try to get this done. Really, not that we need the parts that bad. We just want to get some kind of success, and we're just working like mad here to make it work. So trying different techniques and being real gentle with the flask when we're moving them around so we don't shake the sand out of it. But here we're pulling the patterns out. We spend a lot of time fighting with the little bits of sand that work their way into the mold. Like I said, it's very crumbly. It's not sticking together well at all. So right now we're going to carve the ends out of the sand. That leaves a place for the gases to go. from the cores. As the cores get hot, that sodium silicate, I think, is what outgasses, and it needs a place to go other than pushing back through the aluminum. So you just create a little relief in the sand there for the outgassing of the cores. Now we're just kind of cleaning up the mold, the fill ports, and now we're going to stand it up on its side and use, now that's just a ketchup bottle that I bought to blow out the mold to get all the little grains of sand out of it. Been doing a great job of keeping the area clean. The boy's awesome at keeping the shop clean. A lot better than I am. So just more fidgeting with it. Once we figured out the right formula for the sand, all this became a lot easier. Cores went in. We could tell at this point that we had something a little bit wrong with the cores. I had to push them into the saddles pretty hard, which kind of deformed the mold there a little bit. You can see me fiddling with it. And then when we put the drag back on, right here, I could tell that I had to put a lot of pressure on it to get it to mate. And I think that's probably when the core for the water part, the water inlet, I think it broke the core. Alright, so now we're just making some, that's a fill cup and a couple of riser cups, just to give the mold a little bit of head pressure. And we're almost ready.
Once it gets in there, even if we spill it a little bit, we're not going to stop until it comes out the risers.
We're filling the mold for the first time here. As you can see, us pouring into the fill cup there. It comes out of the left riser fairly quick, and then the fill cup fills up and then sucks back in. So we try to add some more to get it to come out of the right riser, and we never did. I'm not sure. I mean, it did come partially up the right riser, but not all the way up to give it full head pressure. So this is pretty exciting when you get to break the mold open, almost like Christmas. You're excited about how it turned out. And, you know, we waited, I think, about 15-20 minutes for it to cool, maybe a little longer than that. But then wound up just flipping the whole flask over into a tub, letting the sand fall out, and then breaking it open, see what you get. The outside sand comes off really easy. The cores you have to work at a little bit, kind of chisel them out.
I see we're short here. Some of that had to do with the way I didn't really like the way the core fit in there.
The emblem came off a little bit.
See, this is, I think it's just so bubbly because it was way too hot. Cores were plenty strong. There's a piece of core right there. All right, we've done a couple of pours here, and marginal success. This was the first pour, and I can tell you when we poured this aluminum, it was hot. It was smoking hot, and I don't. When I say smoking hot, it was red hot. I don't have a way to measure the temperature of it, and we had. Here comes the cat. We had melted down some other scrap aluminum, and then we were having problems with the sand. We had to repack it 4 times, I think, before we finally felt like we had a mold that was going to work, and it wasn't great. We knew that there was a problem with the sand, but we went ahead and poured this one anyways, and this is really the best piece, and you can tell that the finish on it is pretty horrific. Not a lot of detail, and we obviously had a void here, so had to back up and punt. Well, here's the other piece. You can see, keep it framed, dummy. The core failed, so had to go back and make some adjustments in the core. Had to make some adjustments in the sand that we used, and then we poured again yesterday, and this is the result. So a little bit of progress here. The finish is a little bit better. The aluminum was not as hot. It did not set in the crucible as long with the you know, the heater, the kiln, whatever you want to call it, the furnace running. We got the sand ready. We made some adjustments to the formula on the sand and got the sand ready. Still had to repack it about, I think we did it 3 times before we got a decent mold. But we're learning as we go, and this is, cat, get away. We saw some improvement. We're not totally satisfied here, and we're going to make some more changes, but the change, let's just talk about this piece. This is the inlet for the water jacket on the truck, and we could tell that it was a little bit thin right here. Good grief, keep it in frame. So a little bit thin right here, obviously didn't fill in, and we know we had a core failure. And so I wanted to reduce the dimension, the inside, the size of the core. So I went back to the core box and redid it, reduced the diameter of the core box here, which then produced a core that looks like this. We still have the same diameter here, which is, here's the pattern. It's just the saddles, or what holds the pattern, holds the core. So those are the same diameter, but I've reduced the diameter here, which creates more wall thickness on the actual part. And the results of that were better. We didn't have any voids in this particular part. Good here, good all the way around. What we did do wrong on this one was, I think that probably the next pour, let me get rid of this core box. The next pour will move the feeder back here, as well as the riser back here, to where this big mass of aluminum is, because when it cools down, you can see right here, it started to suck in. And if the riser and the feeder were here closer to it, where when it's cooling down, it would suck from those risers and pull from there, and not cause that indentation. Now, the reducer, we had the exact same problem with both pours. The exact same problem. If you look at, let me put them side by side here. I had a void in the exact same spot. So I think I'm going to have to do the same thing on this one. I'm going to have to reduce the dimensions of this core, which means I'll have to turn this pattern down and then redo this core box to reduce the inside dimension of our cores, which, to tell you the truth, does not thrill me. But got to do what you got to do. So we're going to do that today. The difference in the sand, the original sand that I'll put footage of us setting up the cope and the drag with the original sand. It's real sandy tan color. The clay that I used was fire clay left over from making the refractory cement for the inside of the furnace. And as I dug in the internet a little bit deeper, you're supposed to use bentonite clay and kitty litter or oil dry. So we went and bought some oil dry, and then commandeered the wife's blender and ruined it, and produced some good fine bentonite dust that we mixed in with our sand, in a lot better results. Worked a lot better, and I'll show you pictures of that as well. But so fire clay does not work. Bentonite clay does. It sticks together a lot better and produces a lot better mold. We still got some problems. I mean, we talked about draft earlier in our patterns, and this one I created draft in this dimension, but I did not create draft in this dimension. And you can tell when you pull them out of the sand, it'll pull a little bit of an edge right here, which creates this slag on the side. And gosh, it's tough. Pattern making's tough. The same with here. There's no draft on these ends, and when you pull the patterns out, it chips the edge, which is not a big deal, because it's just the saddles that hold the core, and actually you wind up trimming those out to let the cores gas out. So not that big of a deal there, but along these edges, and the reality of it is that we can grind that off and clean that up and make it look better. But just trying to produce the best casting as we can, and the nice sharpest castings. So I don't know what to do about the surface finish on this. I don't know what we can do to improve that, but we'll work on that as well. Some of this I think is just monkeying around with the molds and the sand falling down in them and not getting it dusted out. I don't know, but we'll try to improve that as well. All right, guys, I don't know what happened here, but I've lost a bunch of video. All this casting work was done early in the spring when the COVID thing was hitting, and I am just way behind on editing. The boy and I have been out here in the shop getting a lot of work done, but the video has just been stacking up, and I haven't been at work, so work is where I normally spend the time editing, and I've been off a good part of the summer, and so it's just been stacking up, and somehow I've lost kind of the end of all this casting work, including the milling and the cleaning up of this water inlet. This is actually a spare one. We cast several of these, and some porosity right here, and of course some suck in there. But all in all, this actually would probably be a good usable piece. We practice on milling, or kind of spacing our milling of our logo in here. That didn't work out quite right, but certainly could mill that off flat again and then recut that, or just leave it without the logo. Lots of these reducers that didn't make the cut, incomplete pours until we got the core right, and then worked out just fine. We got two two good reducers, and they cleaned up and they're on the truck. You saw those in the opening shot. So apologize for kind of the inconsistency, or you know, it's just the quality of this video. It's kind of a wreck, but that's the way it goes. We got, like I said, a lot done on the truck this summer, and some on the car as well. So more videos to follow, and hopefully soon I'm going to try to dedicate a little bit of each morning in the house editing these videos so I can get some more out. But to be honest with you, I just don't enjoy it. So I'd rather be out here in the shop getting something done. So I'll do my best, but hope everybody's well, and appreciate you watching. Take care.